On June 12, 2025, the skies over Ahmedabad turned deadly. Flight AI-171, just minutes after takeoff, plunged into a college hostel. Today, the recovered black box is ready to speak, and what it reveals is truly heartbreaking. It became the deadliest Dreamliner crash in a decade. Lights flickered. I pushed through. There were 241 people on board, and dozens more on the ground. The tragedy touched so many lives. Families, rescue teams, even drew the attention of the Prime Minister. The black box. Actually, it's a combination of the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, was found on the hostel rooftop. This little device matters so much because the data and cockpit audio it holds might just give us the final clues we need. It turns out the flaps were retracted too soon. The evidence shows a pretty flat flight after takeoff, followed by a sudden descent with the landing gear still down. Experts are considering a possible flap or gear misconfiguration, maybe pilot error. There were also engine thrust concerns, but interestingly, no fire before impact. And here's the thing, the Mayday call timeline tells us a lot about those final moments. It's really hard to put into words the heartbreak that followed. The air was thick with grief, and the weight of loss was almost tangible. Families, friends, and entire communities were suddenly thrust into a nightmare, their lives forever changed in a single devastating moment. The news spread rapidly, and as the reality of the tragedy set in, people gathered at airports, hospitals, and the crash site, clinging to hope, searching for answers, and supporting one another through unimaginable pain. The sense of shock and disbelief was overwhelming, and for many, the days that followed felt like a blur of sorrow and confusion. Families were left to identify the charred remains of their loved ones, a task no one should ever have to face. The process was harrowing and deeply traumatic as relatives confronted the grim reality of their loss. Many clung to personal belongings, hoping for a sign, a piece of clothing, or a familiar object that might bring some closure. The morgues and hospitals were filled with the sounds of quiet sobs, anguished cries, and the comforting words of strangers who had become united in grief. Volunteers and counselors did their best to offer support, but the pain was raw and unrelenting. Among those lost were college students, full of dreams and ambitions, whose lives were just beginning. Their friends and classmates gathered for memorial services, sharing stories and memories, struggling to comprehend the sudden void left behind. The tragedy also claimed the life of a former Chief Minister of Gujarat, a respected leader whose passing sent shockwaves through the political community. Candlelight vigils and tribute ceremonies were held across the state, as people from all walks of life came together to honor the memories of those who perished. Survivors, still shaken, recounted their experiences from hospital beds, forging deep human connections in the aftermath. Many described moments of terror and confusion, the desperate struggle to escape, and the overwhelming relief at having survived. Their stories became a source of hope and resilience for others, a reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can endure. Families, friends, and even strangers visited the injured, offering comfort, prayers, and support as they began the long road to recovery. The bonds formed in those hospital rooms would last a lifetime. The government, meanwhile, responded with a safety audit, determined to understand what went wrong and to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. Officials visited the crash site, met with grieving families, and addressed the media, promising transparency and accountability. The disaster sparked a nationwide conversation about aviation safety, emergency preparedness, and the responsibilities of those in charge. Authorities announced a 3-month probe and ordered inspections of the entire fleet involved. Aviation inspectors and mechanics worked around the clock, examining every detail, determined to uncover the truth and restore public confidence. For the families and survivors, the investigation offered a glimmer of hope that lessons would be learned and that their suffering would not be in vain. The heartbreak lingered, but so did the resolve to seek answers, demand justice, and ensure that such a tragedy would never be repeated. So, let's break this down. When we talk about the black box, we're actually referring to two separate devices that are absolutely vital in piecing together the story of any aviation incident. These devices are designed to survive the most extreme conditions: intense heat, crushing pressure, and even being submerged underwater, so that investigators can retrieve crucial data no matter what happens to the aircraft. The first device is the Flight Data Recorder, or FDR. This remarkable piece of technology keeps track of hundreds of different parameters during every second of a flight. It records things like altitude, engine thrust, flap settings, airspeed, heading, and even the position of the landing gear. Essentially, it's like having a digital diary of the plane's every move, capturing the technical heartbeat of the aircraft from takeoff to landing. Alongside the FDR is the Cockpit Voice Recorder, or CVR. This device is equally important, as it captures every sound inside the cockpit, from the pilot's conversations and radio transmissions to the subtle clicks of switches and warning alarms. The CVR provides a real-time audio snapshot of the crew's actions, decisions, and reactions, offering invaluable context to the data recorded by the FDR. After an incident, teams of aviation experts and investigators turn to these black boxes as their primary source of evidence. They meticulously analyze the data, looking for any anomalies or warning signs. For example, they'll check if any takeoff warnings were ignored, if the pilots responded to alarms correctly, or if there were any unexpected changes in the aircraft's systems. The process involves sifting through hours of recordings and thousands of data points. Investigators pay close attention to alarms, control configurations, and temperature readings, searching for clues that might explain what went wrong. They also look for patterns in the crew's communication, which can reveal stress, confusion, or critical decision-making moments. Ultimately, the timeline of events, from the moment the plane began its takeoff roll to the tragic crash, can often be narrowed down to just a few critical seconds. Every detail matters, and the information stored in the black boxes is the key to understanding exactly what happened, helping to prevent future accidents and making air travel safer for everyone. In the aftermath of the tragedy, a massive, coordinated investigation is now underway. Multiple agencies have mobilized, each bringing their own expertise and resources to the table. The Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, or AAIB, is leading the charge from India, while the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, or DGCA, is providing regulatory oversight. From across the globe, the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, has flown in from the United States, joined by technical experts from the United Kingdom. Teams from Boeing, the aircraft manufacturer, and GE, the engine supplier, are also on the ground, working alongside local authorities. This international collaboration underscores the gravity of the incident and the urgent need to uncover the truth behind what happened. These investigators are working under intense pressure, with a strict 3-month deadline to deliver their findings. Every day counts as they sift through flight data recorders, analyze cockpit voice recordings, and interview witnesses. The world is watching, and families of the victims are desperate for answers. The final report will not only explain the sequence of events, but also assign responsibility and recommend changes to prevent such disasters in the future. Depending on what the investigation uncovers, the aviation industry could see sweeping reforms. There may be calls for more rigorous pilot training programs, enhanced simulator sessions, and stricter procedural checks before every flight. Airlines might be required to adopt new safety protocols, and regulatory bodies could introduce tougher oversight measures. The goal is to ensure that every possible lesson is learned and that the skies become safer for everyone. In some cases, if investigators identify a technical flaw or systemic issue, entire fleets of aircraft could be grounded until the problem is resolved. This is a drastic step, but one that has been taken before in the name of passenger safety. Airlines and manufacturers alike are bracing for the potential impact, knowing that the consequences could be far-reaching. The findings of this investigation could ripple across the globe, affecting Boeing's operations in dozens of countries. Airlines may reconsider their orders, regulators might impose new restrictions, and the reputation of one of the world's largest aircraft manufacturers hangs in the balance. The aviation community is holding its breath, waiting to see what changes may be on the horizon. Amidst all this, the human cost remains at the forefront. The Tata Group, as the airline's parent company, has stepped forward to provide immediate support and compensation to the families of those who lost their lives. While no amount of money can ever replace a loved one, these gestures are a crucial part of the healing process. As the search for accountability continues, the world stands in solidarity with the victims and their families, hoping that justice and meaningful change will follow. Soon, the black box will finally reveal the full truth. But honestly, the grieving families will never get their loved ones back. Stay with us as we work to decode the findings. Don't forget to subscribe to Sharva Shorts and ring the bell so you're the first to know.